What's up guys, I'm coming at you for another vlog this week. I'm going to be piggybacking off of the vlog last week where I broke down orbs a little bit. If you guys do want to take a look at that video, I'll put it right here for you. But for now I want to go ahead and talk a little bit about other anomalies that show up in photographs that aren't actually spirits. These that we're going to talk about today are primarily lens flares and other things that are happening within the picture that you might not have recognized at the time. So what is a lens flare? Most of you guys are familiar with lens flare if you've seen the movie Star Trek by J.J. Abrams.
Which path will you choose?
It's called anamorphic lens flare because it's an anamorphic widescreen lens and the light is hitting it and it's spreading out real wide, so it's very dramatic. He uses it because he likes the idea of the future being so bright that you can't contain the light in the lens and it's just shooting in from all angles. It would certainly make my vlogs a little bit more interesting, right? Get a little bit of lens flare epic. But seriously, what is a lens flare though? A lens flare is when you've got your camera lens and it's pointed at some kind of an object, you're taking a picture, and right off to the side, sometimes in front of it, sometimes off to the side of it, not actually in the shot, you've got a really bright light source. And that light source comes in and it hits the lens and it bounces directly into your camera. This can happen with something that's off the side of the camera by hitting that lens, then being refracted directly in, and so you see something in your picture that isn't actually there. Oftentimes this will come in a lot of different shapes. Sometimes it'll reflect off different parts of your lens and you'll get kind of like dusty looking elements in it. You might sometimes get a washed out effect from it. You might sometimes see these artifacts. The artifacts are often sometimes reflective of the lens or the light itself. So sometimes they're very circular, sometimes they look very orb-like, and sometimes too, they actually reflect what the lens curvature actually seems to be. And so the easy ones are obviously, you know, when you have a sun in the corner and you've got them shooting off to the side and you see all the little curves on it. The harder ones are when you're not necessarily sure where though that there's a light kind of up in the corner or something like that, and you get kind of a strange orb looking effect that seems to be sourceless. So the first thing you want to do if you get one of these bright, glowing, shiny-sided objects in your pictures and you're not sure if it's something supernatural or if it's something very natural, and that's to look for any bright objects that might be just off the side of your shot. If you've got kind of a glow in the corner because there was a very bright light source right off the side of the shot, it's probably a lens flare. They're not always going to be the case like this photo right here where you can see all kinds of crazy light shooting all around and it disrupts the shot. Oftentimes too, it'll just be one little delicate one just in the corner. Sometimes it also creates a haze in the corner. Sometimes it'll actually like wipe out the contrast on your picture and you'll get a really flat looking picture, not a lot of deep blacks and good contrast. But if you have that haze in the corner, that's not a spirit trying to manifest, that's not a mist, that's also lens flare manifesting in a little bit of a different way. Which kind of segues into part two where I'm talking about some other stuff other than this lens flare. And the first one of these is different mists that show up in a lot of pictures. Now obviously the easiest one of these is when you're outside in the winter and you're taking a picture and you get a strange mist in front of your camera and then it's gone in your next shot. You know, what is that? Well, you're holding your camera up to your face or in front of your face and you take a picture. It's cold, you know, you see your breath and the flash illuminates that and it comes back right in the front of your picture. Now what's hard about this though is that all the time I'll get people's pictures and they'll show it to me and they're like, this was taken last winter or so, I don't know what it is. And I say, well, was it cold out and you're outside and just probably your breath? They're like, no, I don't remember seeing my breath that night. Like I wasn't breathing when I was taking the picture. And there's all sides of this, right? Like, you know, some nights you don't see your breath. Usually you're breathing when you take the picture. But I think that there's a certain point too where you're breathing, you're taking a couple pictures. Some people take a couple pictures at a time and then they review them. And they're like, well, I don't remember seeing my breath, but you're focused on the picture. Maybe you don't notice anything at the time, but it's there. What's hard about this too is that you can sometimes see your breath even when it's not necessarily super cold out. It's more of a humidity factor. Have you ever gone outside on a morning when it's not very chilly, maybe it's in the 40s or so, and you see your breath anyways on kind of a summer morning? Sometimes that happens too. So even if you're outside and you're saying it was like low 50s this day, it was in the morning, I was taking this picture, could still be your breath. But the other side of it is observation too, and that's the third point I want to talk about. Everyone thinks that they're very observant, right? People will oftentimes show me a picture of, say, a figure standing in the room, and this isn't an orb anymore, it's not a dust, it's not a light artifact, it's not lens flare, it's actually a person standing there. And the question that I come to with this is that it's not a controlled situation. I don't have other photographs, I don't have video stuff at the same time, I wasn't there, so I don't know how controlled the situation was. Which is part of the reason that I don't know if I'll ever be able to look at somebody else's photograph and tell them that it's a ghost, because I don't know, unless it's a bunch of different photographs, unless they've got a lot of different suggestion that the whole area was pretty locked down and I can see that and I can experience that at the same time. If it's just one little photograph, I find that really difficult. Well, the hardest part of this, of course, is that maybe the person was there and they walked away when you weren't looking. So pay attention, I encourage, to try to avoid this. I know that everybody thinks, it's really easy to say, I was there and there was nobody in the room with me. I am observant. But what's really interesting if you start to look into this is some of the psychological experiments that have been done. I worked for the cops for a couple of years in part of their Explorer program back in like high school and early college. And we actually studied this idea of how unreliable witness testimony actually is. Now, witness testimony is a lot of situations where it holds up in court and actually carries kind of a fair amount of weight. If somebody sees something happen, that's really hard proof usually the way that we think about it. But we've done different experiments before, for example, where we're sitting in the room, classroom setting, somebody comes in and gives a piece of paper to the instructor, they chat for just a second, then leaves the room. Now, a little bit of time goes by, and then we run this experiment where we say, hey, all right, everybody in the room, what was the color of his shirt on the guy that walked in? What was he wearing? What color were his pants? What did he do in the room? Did he just talk to me? Did he give me something? What happened? And what's fascinating is to see how different the responses are. And the mind constructs stuff because the mind is trying to be very, very confident about what happens and about this observation. And so it looks back on memory and you're like, yeah, that's how it was. My psychology teacher in high school, he suggested this idea that, he remembers very distinctly a memory of when he lived in Germany when he was 4 years old, of pedaling his tricycle down this really, really steep hill of his driveway back into the garage. Now, what was interesting about it, though, is he saw pictures of that house when he was much older, and he looked back on the memory, and the pictures had a flat driveway, and it wasn't at all like he remembered it. So it's incredibly interesting how fickle the brain actually is when it comes to memory and observation. And this happens a lot with pictures. When you look down at your phone, you're taking a bunch of pictures at a time necessarily. It's got that delay in between pictures. You're looking at other things. You might be confident that there's not anyone in the room, but sometimes there's somebody just passing right through in the background that you don't even necessarily know is there, or you might notice, but you don't process that and it doesn't sink into your memory. So I encourage, if you're taking pictures like this, be really observant. That's the other thing too. You might get dust in your picture, you might get these lens flares. Those look consistent enough that they're easy to write off. But when you have a full-fledged person standing in the back of the room, then the question remains, did you notice it or did you not? What was actually happening in that situation? And I encourage you to be skeptical. There's certain situations where you're like, what's more likely? Did I actually catch a full-bodied apparition, or was that just somebody walking through the background of my shot that I wasn't sure at the time that they were there? A lot can happen in even just 30 seconds when you're not paying attention.
This is an awareness test. How many passes does the team in white make?
Go!
The answer is 13. But did you see the moonwalking bear?
So that's all I got for you guys this week, though. If you have an opinion, definitely chime in the comment section down below. I know a lot of you guys are photographers and know a little bit more about the subject than me, and so if you have any more details about this you'd like to add, absolutely contribute them. I'm always happy to hear from you guys. If you'd like to check out the videos that I did last week, I got them right here and right here. I'll go ahead and throw them in. We've got the one, of course, on photography and orbs that we did last week that I mentioned already in this vlog, and the one below is on provoking and a little bit of the details about that, whether or not it's a good idea to do an investigation. Now, I've also got some events coming up, so I'm hoping to get some celebrity guests on here on the vlogs in coming weeks, but I'll let you know more about that as it happens. And also, if you guys are interested in anything that I'm pushing, I'll give you a little bit of details right here. I wrote a book. It's called Hallowtide. It's a novel. It's not about ghost hunting, but it has some supernatural elements to it. There's a link to that down in the doobly-doo below if you want to check it out. And also, I'm going to be on this cruise, a Ghost Hunters cruise in May, so if that's something that you might have some money for, you might want to go off on a cruise, California coast, hit up some haunted spots, hang out with me and Barry Fitzgerald. The link to that down in the doobly-doo as well. We'd love to have you there. It's going to be a fun time. I've never been on a cruise before. I think it's going to be great. But of course, if you're interested in anything else, if you want to contact me, say hello or say what I'm all about, www.karlpfeiffer.com is the website. And I'm always on Twitter at Karl Pfeiffer. Shoot me a line there. I always try to holler back at you guys. Otherwise, thank you for watching, and we'll see y'all next time. Lens flare!